Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be making this little miffy keychain. So before we get started with the tutorial, please make sure that you have all the materials for this pattern. First we'll be needing some white yarn. The one that I'm using is by Abbreviations. It's the premium one in the size 4 medium and the color is just white. Next you'll be needing a crochet hook. The size that I'm using is 5mm. You're also going to be needing a stitch marker. If you don't have one, you can use a small safety pin like I am here. Next you'll be needing a needle. Any sewing needle will do. A pair of scissors, some stuffing, some black yarn. This will be for the eyes, and some sewing thread. This will be for the mouth. Alternatively, you can also use safety eyes for the eyes if you have any laying around, but if not, I would say the best bet is to just go with a thin strand of black yarn. And lastly, you'll be needing a key ring if you intend on making the miffy crochet into a keychain. To start this pattern, we're going to first make a magic circle. And to do this, we're going to have our yarn at the 2 fingers mark. Secure that with your thumb. And you're going to wrap it around your fingers and then make an X. Then you're going to wrap it back around and make 2 parallel lines. Then I'm going to secure the yarn with my 2 fingers. So now if you look at the front of your fingers, you'll see an X, and if you look at the back, you'll see 2 parallel lines. Now you're going to take your hook. You want to make sure your hook is facing down, and you're going to go under the first strand and then hook the second one. And you're going to gently pull and then make a twist, like so. So now you have 1 loop on your hook. You're going to now make sure your hook is facing up, and you're going to go underneath this strand of yarn. You're going to hook it, and you're going to bring this strand of yarn into the loop that we just made. So I like to have my hook facing down when I'm about to go into the loop, and then just scooping it through like so. Now if you let go of the hand that's not holding your hook, you'll find a little circle has been formed, and this is your magic circle. Now we're going to make 6 single crochets into the magic circle. So we're going to go into the magic circle, and this yarn in the back, we're going to bring it forward. So we're going to bring it into the magic circle, like so. And then you're going to yarn over and then bring this strand of yarn into both loops, like that. And that is your first single crochet. So we're going to do this 5 more times until we reach 6 single crochets into the magic circle. So once you have your 6 single crochets, if you look at the side over here, you should see braids. Each braid means 1 single crochet. Now I'm going to remove my hook, and I'm going to pull on this tail over here. And when you pull on this tail, this circle in the middle will close. So just gently pull it in, and then now you no longer have that big circle in the middle. And that kind of pulls everything into a little disc like so, but still you can see your braids on the outside. These are your 6 single crochet stitches. Now we're going to close up this disc using a slip stitch. So I'm going to put my hook back in, and we're going to look over here to find our next braid. So this is the first braid that I see, which means this is the first stitch that we're going to be working into. So I'm just going to pull on both sides of the braid a little to open up some space, and you're going to take your hook and go underneath the braid. So there's one side of the braid here and one side of the braid over here. You want to go under both. So if your stitch is really tight like it is for me, you just want to slowly wiggle it through, like so. So now you have your hook underneath the braid. Now you're going to yarn over once again and then pull the strand of yarn through both of these loops. So you're going to pull it through one and then the other. Moving into round 2, before you start, you want to take your stitch marker and place it at the last braid that you made. So if you look underneath your hook over here, you should see your braids. You're going to put your stitch marker at the last braid that you just made. And this just marks where we ended off the previous round. So now as we work around the next second round, this is our last stitch. So once we reach this stitch, this is when we know, okay, we're done with round 2. For this round, we're going to be doing 6 increases all around. So to make an increase, we're going to find our next braid over here. We're going to go underneath the braid and just do a normal single crochet first. So there's your single crochet. And now we're going to go back into the same stitch that we just worked into. So going back underneath the exact same braid that we just made that single crochet in. So going back into that same hole, it should be slightly obvious because you should see a little gap over here. So you're going to have your hook go into that hole, make another single crochet. So bring your yarn forward, yarn over, and then bring it through both loops. And that is an increase. So an increase is essentially 2 single crochets into 1 stitch. So let's make our second increase. So we're going to find our next stitch, which is our next braid over here. We're going to go underneath the braid, bring our yarn forward. So now you have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, and then through both. So that's 1 single crochet. Now to do the increase, we're going to go back into the exact same hole. So underneath that same braid we just worked into, bring the yarn forward. So now you have 2 loops on your hook once again, yarn over, and then pull through both. So now I'm going to make 4 more increases to get a total of 6 increases, and then we're done with round 2. For round 3, we're going to be working in a set. So one set for this round is a single crochet and then an increase. So what this means is when we look at our next stitch over here, we're going to start with 1 single crochet, and then we're going to move on to the next stitch and do an increase. And then the next stitch will be a single crochet, and then the next stitch will be an increase. So after you do 1 single crochet and 1 increase, that is 1 set completed. So let's work on the first set together. I'm going to find my next stitch over here, which is the next braid that I see. I'm going to bring my yarn forward to make a single crochet. So there's my first single crochet. Now I'm going to move on to the next stitch and make an increase for this one. So I'm making my usual single crochet, and now to do the increase, I'm going to go into that same hole and make another single crochet. So that is our first set completed, because we did 1 regular single crochet in that first stitch, and then we did an increase in the next stitch. So we're going to need a total of 6 sets for this round. So I'm going to continue doing that, and if the math checks out, you should finish your last stitch where the stitch marker is. And there we have it, our 6 sets. So I'm going to put my stitch marker back in. Now let's move on to the next round. The next 3 rounds are what I call repeat rounds, because pretty much what you're doing is you're repeating the same thing for the next couple of rounds. So for rounds 4, 5, and 6, we're just going to be single crocheting all around. So let's start with round 4, which is 18 single crochets. Once you're done with round 4, you're going to place your stitch marker back in. And now we're ready to move on to round 5, which is the exact same thing, so 18 single crochets all around. Okay, now that we're done with round 5, I'm going to place my stitch marker back in, and we're ready to move on to the last repeat round, which is round 6. Another 18 single crochets. Now we are officially done with the repeat rounds, so that concludes round 6. I'm going to place my stitch marker back in and just do a count to make sure I'm still on the right track with a total of 18 stitches. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Perfect. So now we are ready to move on to round 7. Now moving into round 7, we're going to once again work in sets, but instead of increases, we're going to be doing decreases. So one set for this round is 1 single crochet and then a decrease. So let's get through the first set together. We're going to find our first stitch. We're going to do our usual single crochet. So for this pattern, we're going to be doing an invisible decrease. To do an invisible decrease, we're only going to be using the front loops. So what this means is up until this point, we've been putting our hook underneath both sides of the braid. So going underneath the entire braid. But for the front loops only, we're only going to go through the front half. So you see there's this half of the braid and then this half of the braid. We're only going to be going through the front half. So you could also think of it like you're going from underneath and then into the center, like so. And now instead of working 1 stitch at a time, we're going to be combining 2 stitches at a time. So you have your hook through the first front loop. Now you're going to go into the next stitch and loop your hook through the front loop of that one instead. So in total, you should have 3 loops on your hook. So again, to demonstrate, this is our regular loop from when we made the single crochet. We're going to find our next stitch, go into the front loop, and then go into the front loop of the following stitch. So now you have 3 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over, but you're going to bring this strand of yarn only to the first 2 loops. So you're going to ignore this 3rd loop for now. You're going to pull it through the first 2 loops. So now you have 2 loops on your hook, and you're going to yarn over and then bring it through everything. And that is your first decrease. And that also completes your first set because you made one single crochet here and then you made a decrease. So in total you'll be doing 6 sets or until you reach back to the stitch marker. Now to finish off the head, we're going to do our last round, which is round 8. And for this round, we're just going to be doing decreases all around. And we're going to do a total of 6 decreases. And since that was the very last round for the head, we will no longer be needing our stitch marker. So I'm just going to set that aside. And now you're going to take your stuffing and start stuffing the head. Alrighty, once you're happy with how your project feels, we're going to cut this yarn. So I would say cut around this much would be sufficient. I'm going to pull that through and you're going to take your sewing needle. So what we're doing now is we're going to be closing that gap on the top. And the way I like to do this is it's almost as if I'm still crocheting. I just go into the next stitch and then to the next stitch. So the 2 next stitches. And then I just pull it tight and then I go into the next stitch, loop it in with the other one, and then pull it tight. Now I'm going to secure the yarn, so I'm just going to be threading it out. You want to pull gently during this part because you don't want to be pulling anything through. You just want to secure your yarn because if you pull too hard, this part will kind of indent in and you don't want that, so you just want to gently be securing your yarn. Now we are ready to cut. Okay, so let's set this aside for now as we make the ears. To make the ears, we're going to also start in a magic circle. So again, keeping it at the 2-finger position, we're going to secure that with our thumb. And we're going to loop it around our fingers and make an X. And then we're going to make 2 parallel lines and secure that. Now you're going to take that same hook and you're going to go underneath the first strand, hook the second one, and make a twist to make a loop on your hook. And then we're going to go underneath, grab this yarn, and then pull it through the loop like so. Now if you let go of your hand, you should have a little magic circle. So I'm going to make the circle a bit smaller, and then what we're going to do is we're going to single crochet 4 into the magic circle. So as opposed to 6 when we first started this pattern, for the ears we're only doing 4. So we're going to bring our hook into the circle and we're going to bring the yarn forward. So now we have 2 loops on our hook, yarn over and into both, and that's our first single crochet. So now I'm going to do this 3 more times to get a total of 4 single crochets into our magic circle. Okay, now that we have the 4 single crochets, we're just going to pull on the tail to tighten everything up, and also making sure that we can still see the 4 braids. And now we're going to close off this magic circle using a slip stitch. So we're going to find our first starting braid. We're going to go under both sides of the braid. So we're not doing decreases anymore, we're just doing regular single crochets. I'm just pulling on both sides of the braid a little to open up some space to get my hook through. And then to do a slip stitch, you're going to yarn over and you're just going to pull it through everything. Moving into round 2 for the ears, we're going to be doing single crochets 4 times around the disc. I'm going to put my stitch marker in, and then we're going to do the next round, which is another 4 single crochets all around. Now that you're done with this, you're going to cut, I would say this much, however much yarn you think you'll need to sew this onto the head of your miffy. So I'm going to take my hook out and then I'm going to loop that through, and then you might see that your tail is hanging out here. This is actually good. We're going to be using this tail as stuffing for the ears. So I'm going to open up the hole a little bit and just use my hook to slowly stuff this extra piece of yarn in. If you don't have any extra yarn laying around, you can cut a piece from your big ball of yarn. You can also use stuffing, but I find that because the hole is so small, 1, it's really hard to get stuffing in, and 2, when I use yarn as stuffing, it blends in beautifully. Okay, once that is nicely stuffed, I'm going to kind of flatten this out a little bit and pull on the sides a bit to kind of make it look more like a rabbit ear. And I like to pinch the top because I like when the top has that little sharp edge. It looks more like Miffy's ears in my opinion. And there you have the first ear. Now we're going to repeat the process for making the ear from rounds 1 to 3 to make another ear. So feel free to go back in the video to where I first started making the ear, and I'll see you when both ears are completed. Okay, once you have your 2 ears completed, we're going to start sewing. So taking your needle, we're going to take 1 ear to start. I would say choose the side that looks worse to be your top because your ears will cover that up. And if you're making this into a keychain, you want to be sure to leave a little bit of space. So you don't want to keep it right next to each other because then you can't really put your key ring in. So if you want to make a keychain, you want to keep a little bit of space in between. Now we're going to make our finishing touches, which is the eyes and the mouth. So I'm going to start with the eyes first. I already have my black yarn loop through my needle, and I'm going to first figure out where I want to put my eyes. So usually I like to divide it in half, so halfway point is around here, and have the eyes start just below the halfway point. And then I'm going to have it around 1/3 of the ear. So I'm going to place my eyes probably at these 2 points, and then have my mouth down here. So I'm going to go in from the side and then point to where I want the top of my eye to be. So I'm going to gently pull through until I can only see a tad bit left, and you want to be really gentle during this part. Now I'm going to go down because I want my eyes to finish here, and then when I come back up, I'm going to point the needle back where I started. And I'm going to push that to the side a little bit because Miffy's eyes are kind of like ovals. So I'm going to have this as one oval. And by doing that, I'm just keeping my finger here so it doesn't turn into a straight line. Next, I'm going to go in on the bottom and then point it towards where I want my other eye to be. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to pull gently to make sure the eye looks like how I want it to look. You can pull and adjust, pull and adjust. I think that looks pretty cute. Maybe make it a tad smaller. Yeah. Alright, let's see how this looks. So we're going to go under and then place it back in, pull gently, and then do the exact same thing. I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to secure the yarn, so I'm going to bring it back in, and then I'm going to point it towards the bottom. And you want to pull gently as you do this. Now I'm going to cut this yarn, take my needle out, and now we're going to make the mouth. Now we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to start from the side and then point it to the top of the mouth. So I think for my mouth, I'm gonna have it at this point. So in between these 2 points. Yeah. I'm going to gently pull until I can only see a little bit of the thread left. And then I'm going to point it down and then back up. Once you're happy with how your Miffy mouth looks, you can go ahead and secure your yarn. But because the thread is a lot thinner this time around, I like to just make a little loop at the end. Like so. And then I cut it. And now for those of you that want to turn this into a keychain, the simple way to do it is to take your key ring, open it a little bit, and just hook it as deep as you possibly can into the top in between the ears. And then you're going to close that up, and there you have it. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this tutorial, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, and if you want to see more tutorials like this, feel free to subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below, or if there's any other tutorials you would like to see, definitely let me know as well. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you in another tutorial.